As you may or may not know, my wife and I just got back from Vegas. It was a great trip. We ate, we drank, we had a blast. But then we got home and looked at the credit card, and I gotta say, it doesn't matter how much fun you're having, $25 for a drink is a ripoff. Frickin' Vegas. I hate getting ripped off, and so do the lads over at Harry's. They spent years watching the razor blade companies rip people off and said, no more. Not all heroes wear capes, my friends, and they want to prove that they're legit by offering you hot dogs a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. I've been telling you about them for months, and I'm genuinely proud to have Harry's as a sponsor of this show. I wasn't kidding. The plastic, futuristic-looking crap razors you get at the store are overpriced and they're poor quality. Harry's blades are crisp, clean, and classy. They're the kind of razor you'd expect your grandpa to have on his bathroom counter. And most importantly, they work. Shave after shave, they're so smooth, they're precise. I used to go through the crappy store blades all the time, but Harry's are built to last. And they're not just better quality than the other names, they're more affordable. And they deliver. Just set your schedule, and for as little as $2, new blades, shaving creams, lotions, everything you need, right to your door when you need it. I genuinely cannot think of a reason not to try Harry's. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsors. They're the best shaving supplies I've ever used. Try them out, and if you're not happy, your shave's on them. And unlike the other subscriptions, they're really easy to cancel if you want to too, which is a nice bonus, but believe me, you're not going to want to cancel. Getting ripped off isn't funny. Switch to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. That's harrys.com/RTG for a $3 trial set. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Remember the Game. It's my retro gaming podcast where every week a buddy of mine and I sit down and geek out about the games we played back in the day. My name is Adam Blank. Thank you all so much for listening. This week, episode 58, in light of SummerSlam coming up this Sunday, we are talking WCW nWo Revenge for the Nintendo 64. It's, everybody knows it. Well, if you like wrestling games, you know it. If you're not a wrestling fan, you're probably not listening to this episode. This is going to be very wrestling-centric. I'm home. If you guys can't, I'm sure the intro probably sounds a little better than the last couple have. I mean, it's still not great, because I know that this is a 4 out of 10 podcast at best, but the last couple of weeks, the intros have probably been like a 2 because I've been on the road. I'm back in my house in Edmonton, Alberta. I got home literally 3 hours ago. I've been up since about 3 o'clock this morning. I flew back from Ottawa. So I'm very tired, but before I go and just relax for the night, I had to get this episode done. Thank you all so much for your patience as far as the sound quality the last couple of weeks. I know I've explained it, but I got to fill some time, so I'm going to explain it again just quickly. When I'm here at home, I've got a couple of Shure 58 microphones that go into a cheap mixer that then goes into my Zoom H1 to record my audio files. When I'm on the road, I can't bring all that shit with me. I literally just have my Zoom H1 and I talk into it, and so I don't know if the sound is balanced because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But hopefully this sounds a little bit better. Thank you all so much for the patience the last couple of weeks and not leaving me bad reviews and shitting all over the show. And God, it's good to be home, man. It was a phenomenal 3-week tour in Ontario, and I'm not I'm fully aware of how privileged I am that this is how I make my living now, and I tell jokes and get to go on the road and see places. But sometimes I wonder if I'm built to be a stand-up comedian because, man, I miss fucking home. After about 2 days, I miss my girlfriend and I miss my friends and I miss my dog so much. And I was so happy. There's nothing better than coming home from a trip and seeing your dog for the first time in a few weeks. Like she's laying here at my feet right now. My dog's named Molly, and she lost her fucking mind when I walked in the door. So I'm flying high. It's good to be home. It's good to see my puppy. And we'll get back to the routine here now. So a couple of quick thank yous, you guys. First and foremost, thank you to everyone that's been listening to the show. We cracked 10,000 downloads last week. I posted about it on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. There's my plugs. Follow us at Member the Game. just like Remember, but without the RE at the front, just at Member the Game on Twitter and Instagram. We follow back and then search for the show on Facebook. We cracked 10,000 downloads. It took us 57 episodes to get there, and I didn't expect that ever. And I listen, I'm fully aware that that's not like phenomenal numbers compared to the big shows, but it's a big fucking deal to me. So thank you all so much. My goal is 25,000 by episode 100. So we're on track, and I've used some of my Patreon money on some advertising. I'm thinking about going to the Edmonton Comic Expo here in September and just giving away like business cards for the show. My pal Jason suggested that, and just kind of try to get it out there. So if you've got ideas, I'm interested. If you've ever tried to do something like that at an expo, I'm interested to see, like, are they going to throw me in nerd jail if I do that? But anyway, 10,000 downloads. So thank you all so much. And more specifically, thank you. Well, not more specifically, but equally thankfully, I'm tired. Thank you to all of you that supported us on Patreon. We cracked the $100 mark this month. A couple of people actually upped their bids at the last minute just to try to get us there, which in specific to you guys, thank you all for doing that. Don't break yourselves for the show. Like, it's a hobby. You know, I don't need this. It's not like I'm not going to eat if I don't... If you guys don't support it. I thank you. Thank you all so much. We cracked $100, so I'm giving away the Sega Genesis Classic this month instead of the 25%, spending the whole thing on an extra Sega. I'll be shooting that draw video here in the next day or two, and it should be up probably by early mid next week, if not before that. As I record this, it's Tuesday evening, the 6th. I have a show on the 7th. I've got a show out of town on the 8th, and then I leave for BC on the 9th, and I'm gone for the weekend again. So I'm going to try to get the video recorded before then and hopefully uploaded. The Sega doesn't actually come out till September 19th, so it doesn't, it's not the end of the world if I don't get it up before then. I just know everybody wants to see who won. So I'm going to try to get it recorded, okay? And speaking of Patreon, I'll be doing everyone's shout-outs next week on the show, and you'll be getting your first bonus episode this Monday, upcoming August 12th. Mark McHugh will be here. We are talking Octopath Traveler for the Nintendo Switch. Phenomenal RPG, very vintage style. So that'll be your first episode. Your second bonus episode will be going live August 26th. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do another rambling Q&A one or if I'm going to talk about another more modern game. I'm curious to know what you guys are more interested in. I'm going to try to post a poll on the Patreon page, and I'll put it on Twitter and stuff as well. Let me know. Did you guys enjoy the rambling thing? Or are you like, Adam, shut the fuck up and just talk video games? Because if that's what you want, then I'll just talk video games. I'll do an extra episode of that every month. But your 2 bonus episodes are coming. The draw will be up in the next few days, and you'll be getting your shout-outs next week on the show. So thank you all so much for supporting the Patreon, and good luck to all of you in the Sega Genesis draw. I hope somebody cool wins it, and I'm glad that we're getting it out of the way early. I wanted to do it in August because it launches September 19th, and that way I can get all the details out of the way, get your address. If you live in fucking the States or the Netherlands or Australia or one of those fucking weird not Canada places, I can figure out how to get this thing to you, and we're good, and everything's good, and la 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 la. It's good to be home, man. I don't have much else to talk about other than what I've been playing. All I've really been playing is my Switch because I've been on the road. I haven't had access to my retro. That's another thing is like, again, I'm going back on the road right away, but it's so good. I'm so excited to have access to all my retro games again. My Ninja Turtle review got bumped back. I'll be getting back to work on that here right away. Hopefully get that up in the next few weeks. I'm playing through Thousand Year Door. Paper Mario, the 1,000-Year Door on my GameCube, possibly as research for an upcoming episode, hint, hint. So I want to get back to that, and I want to get back to the Let's Plays. I've had a few people, I didn't think anyone cared. Well, I know a couple of you cared, but I've had a few people reach out and be like, hey, where are the Let's Plays? And I'm going to get back to doing that soon, too. I think my nephew, my nephew will be staying at my house here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to get an episode or 2 of the show done, and I'm going to try to do a Let's Play with him as well. I'm just trying to figure out how to make that work as far as the technology and the microphones and stuff, because as you're all well aware, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So can't wait to hop back into my retro games. But as far as and hopefully Nintendo drops us, it's August 6th as I record this. Nintendo should be telling us what our fucking August Nintendo Online games are soon, and I can't wait to see what they fucking roll out. I'm telling you all, calling it, Mark, take my shot right now. Super Nintendo games are coming next month, just in time for the renewal of everybody's Nintendo Online. But in the meantime, we're gonna get stuck with one more month of fucking Nintendo games. Please give us the original Earthbound or Mother, whatever you want to call it, Nintendo. At this point, I just don't have faith that they're gonna do anything good. I'm sure it's gonna be something crappy. All I've been playing this week is Fire Emblem, Three Houses. That is all I've been playing since I finished up Ultimate Alliance a week and a half ago. I've been playing Fire Emblem Three Houses, and I fucking love it. I love it. It's my game of the year thus far, I think. I'm not even that far into it. Okay, so I'm gonna go on. I don't think there's gonna be any spoilers in this, but I am gonna talk a little bit of Fire Emblem. So just if you're interested in that game, maybe skip the next 2.5 minutes. But I'm fucking adoring it. I've only ever played one other Fire Emblem game to fruition, and that was Awakening. That was my first one, and a lot of people loved it, and I actually really, really enjoyed it too. That was the first like tactical RPG I ever played, and I loved it, and it really got me into the genre, and it has me wanting to look up some more Fire Emblem games between that and now Three Houses. It's a little overwhelming at first. This Three Houses is. There's a ton of like customization and getting to know all your students and your team and stuff like that. But now that I'm like legitimately attached to like all the kids on my team, like I really want to see them all do well, and I know where they're all gonna, what goals they're all working toward as far as their character development and stuff like that. It's very easy. I will warn you guys of that if you're thinking about picking it up. I got about 8 hours into my first playthrough on normal and then tapped out. Or no, I think it was about 13 hours anyway. And then I tapped out and decided to start over on hard before I got any further into the game, because it was literally like my guys were taking no damage and just walking through enemies. And I was like, this is just too much, or too soft. So now that it's on hard, I'm still finding it pretty easy, to be honest with you. Apparently it gets a little harder later in the game. And they're dropping some free DLC later with like a heavier difficulty, Lunatic, I think, that's what I'm talking about. Like fucking hurt my soul. That's what I want. But I adore it. The gameplay is great. The mechanics are cool. Getting to know your team and developing all your characters. If you've played a Fire Emblem before, this one is absolutely sick. If you've never played one, do a little bit of homework maybe before you drop $80+ on it, because I don't think it's going to be everyone's cup of tea. But if you're into tactical RPGs and that kind of stuff, pick it up, because it is. I can't stop playing it. I like very rarely do I play a game on my Switch until I run the battery down to 0, and I've done that so many times with this game over the last week. It's fucking phenomenal. I love it. I know that two of the guys that are on the show all the time, Chris and Mark McHugh, are both playing it and loving it too. So 3 great reviews. Go play it. Maybe we'll do an episode about it someday. All right, good enough. That's 10 minutes. I'll shut up. You guys don't care about that. You guys care about WCW nWo Revenge. So that's what we're talking about this week. This game, we all know the Nintendo 64 was the peak for wrestling games. You could talk about Here Comes the Pain and some of the later SmackDown games, but the N64 was the wrestling console, right? And we all know it started with WCW World Tour, which was fine. It laid the groundwork. WCW nWo Revenge, I prefer No Mercy, and I think most people do. Having said that, I think Revenge is the one most people know. I mean, this was when WCW was at like the peak of its glory days, and it's hard at this point to even remember they had glory days, but they did. You had the nWo, you had the Wolfpack, Ravens Flock, Goldberg, DDP was there, Bret Hart had shown up. It was like WCW was at its all-time high now, and this game was the fucking shit. I remember playing this game in Cold Lake, Alberta, where I grew up with my pal Sean and some of my other friends up there, and we would play for fucking hours and hours. You're going to hear all about it on this week's episode. I adore this game. Doesn't have the depth of some of the other ones, but it doesn't matter. It was fun to play. The roster was jacked. I figured SummerSlam is this Sunday. Stupid Goldberg. I hate him. He's going to be wrestling at SummerSlam this Sunday, so I can hashtag Goldberg on all my promos and get the podcast out there more and do, the good promotioning thing, because that's what good podcast hosts do. I'm joined this week by my pal and fellow wrestling nerd, Brad. You may remember him from NHL 94 Glory a few weeks ago here on the show. He's back, and goddamn if we didn't have a good time reminiscing about WCW nWo Revenge. Normally I would have already said cue the music, but the music is only a 40-second long clip because it's the generic entrance music that they had, so I'm saving it till right near the end so that I don't hit the music too fast and run through it all. But I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. WCW nWo Revenge, originally released in North America for the Nintendo 64 on October 26th, 1998. It is 21 years old, and I remember it as well as I did back. Like, it feels like yesterday I was fucking playing it. I adore this game. You guys have listened to enough of my tired rambling. I am going to shut up. I'm going to save it and say it right at the end. Kick back, relax, enjoy this week's episode, you guys. WCW nWo Revenge. Hit my music! This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Everyone that listens to this podcast knows about our illustrious CEO, my dog Molly. But the other silent partner behind the scenes is my wife. And let me tell you, my friends, a 17-year relationship with another person that has to talk to and live with you is a lot harder to maintain than one with a dog. We've had our ups and downs, and as you all know, a relationship isn't all sunshine and rainbows. They can be a lot of work. You get out what you put in when it comes to relationships, and talking to a therapist can be a fantastic way to put in some work. They can help you work through your issues, learn to communicate better, and even just provide you with an ear to bend when you need it. I've talked to my therapist about my relationships, especially when it came to my stand-up comedy career and how much I was away from home, and they helped me work on ways to keep my relationship strong even when I was out on the road. It turned out our relationship was actually better when I was out on the road, but that's a story for another day. And I know, right? Therapy. Who has the time these days? BetterHelp hears you, and they're making it easy. Fill out a quick form online, and they'll match you up with a therapist that suits your needs, and that'll work around your schedule. You pick the meet times, and you can get your therapy fix from anywhere, over video, phone, or just chat. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/rememberthegame today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/rememberthegame. All right, this is, I'm excited to talk about this one, and I say that almost every week, but anytime we talk wrestling on this show, I get excited because I fucking love pro wrestling, and I love these old wrestling games, and this one is one of the best, and I'm joined by an old friend of mine / enemy of mine, Mr. Brad Warren. How are you, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm great, and we are talking WCW nWo Revenge for the Nintendo 64.
Yes.
This is one you and I have been talking about doing for probably since I launched the fucking show, and we just haven't been able to make the schedules line up.
100%.
Now, we have already covered No Mercy on here. You can go back in the archives and find WWF No Mercy. It's in like the 20s, I think, of the episodes. I don't think most people would agree that No Mercy is better than Revenge.
Oh, of course.
But I mean, when you just look at Revenge, like, because like the only reason people think that No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000 and stuff like that are better than Revenge is because they took the Revenge engine and polished it more and added more, right?
And it's WCW.
Right.
Because WCW sucked.
But when Revenge came out, we didn't have any of these future games to compare to. Revenge was the fucking tits.
Yes.
Like, this game was awesome. And you're right that it's WCW.
Yes.
But like,
at the time,
this was when WCW, like, dude, I was doing a little bit of homework this morning getting ready for this podcast. And I was like, dude, if ever there was like a fucking a timestamp of when WCW wasn't bad, it's this.
Yeah.
Like,
well, when you think about it too, it's like you and I have discussed it. How many hours of wrestling did we watch on Monday nights? When TSN finally would air it, actually they wouldn't air it on, because for a while there it was on Thursdays, I believe they watched.
It would be later in the week.
Nitro would be on. But then when they went live and they did the back-to-backs, you were watching 6 hours of wrestling?
No, because Raw was only 2.
Right,
so it was like 5 hours of wrestling.
Because then WCW went to 3 and
and it's funny because like we all look back at WCW now and laugh and shit. Although I will say, when you look at the current WWE product,
I'd rather watch Nitro.
I miss WCW.
Yes,
like, which is really fucked up.
Yes.
But for the most part, people look back on WCW and laugh, and I get why, because they were a monster that just completely fell apart. It seems like overnight that company just completely disintegrated.
100%.
But
it's one of those things where you look back, like you said, with this game, especially in the roster, and everybody was there. You're right, though. It was a time period game that it was unbelievable,
dude. It was like so I was okay. So I was flipping through the roster because that's where I always start with these games is the roster. Now I was flipping through the roster of this game, and I was like, God damn it! Like if there was ever a time WCW had like a holy shit roster, it was this fucking game. Yeah. Like just quickly, I just scribbled down a few names that are in this game, just really quickly. Obviously, you've got Hogan.
Greatest
Hogan.
ever.
Of course he is. Yeah. But you have the Giant. You have Kurt Hennig, Eric Bischoff, which I think is hilarious because I love it when managers are in games.
Well, that was the first. I believe it was the first game that had the managers come out.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, because they used to escort them down to the ring and stuff.
Exactly,
yeah.
and they would stand on the outside. And they wouldn't really do anything, but
right. Yeah, because like
they were there.
Yeah, because this game went up against Attitude for the WWF, which is also covered in the archives of our show here. And Attitude, like you could play, I think, as a few managers. Like I want to say you could play as Paul Bearer, and you could play as like Deborah and stuff. But they never came down to the ring with the wrestlers they managed. Whereas this one, like DDP came out with Kimberly, and Macho Man came out with Elizabeth, and and Hogan had Bischoff, which is rad, right? So okay. So just quickly, the Giant, Kurt Hennig, which is Mr. Perfect for you non-wrestling. If you're a non-wrestling fan, you're not listening to this.
Yeah, fuck you.
Eric Bischoff, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, who for my money killed WCW, but that's another point. The Macho Man, Randy Savage, Sting, Raven, Roddy Piper, Diamond Dallas Page, Goldberg, Bret Hart, Chris Benoit, Booker T, Disco Inferno, which I threw in there just for you.
I knew. Yeah, okay.
Jim Neidhart.
We don't need to get into that either.
No. Jim Neidhart, the British Bulldog, La Parka. I love fucking La Parka. And then like even the screen, literally there's a screen of just the Cruiserweight division. And just looking at the Cruiserweight division.
There's 60 guys.
Yeah.
There's 60.
Like when you look at this is just the single list of Cruiserweight wrestlers. This is just a few of them. Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio Jr., the Ultimo Dragon, Chavo Guerrero.
Right.
Like what a fucking roster.
Yeah. And the beauty of the game too was I was doing the same thing you were, just kind of doing a quick review, and I found a guy that was reviewing it online. And they broke it down into stables. So it was so easy to find, like Raven's Flock.
Which was rad, too.
Yeah, because you know what? It was just very easy to find.
Yeah.
The guy you wanted to be.
Yeah, so many wrestling games, like all the WWE ones now and everything, which I get, because like stable, like I don't know if there was ever a more predominant time in wrestling for stables.
Factions were the greatest thing ever.
This era of WCW.
Well, it made everything make sense.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Because you had groups, and then the groups hated each other. It was the most easiest storyline you could tell.
It was gang warfare, right?
Yes.
But like there was never a WWE game, I know there wasn't like you're like literally the character select screen in this game is like they call it nWo White, which I always hated. I was like, it's nWo Hollywood, like just follow or black and white.
Well, I think that came later, right? When they called it Hollywood, and then there was Wolfpack, and
but they don't call it Wolfpack either. It was nWo White and nWo Red,
right?
Which I always like. It's a very minor thing, but I was like, that's not what they fucking are. Well, that would have been like calling it D Faction X.
This is this is our wrestling nerdisms.
Well, that's what this podcast is all about.
Yes.
But any other wrestling game, it's either like a scrolling list of just all the wrestlers, or it's like a screen of 9, and then the screen 2 of 9, screen 3 of 9, like 9 wrestlers, 9 wrestlers, 9 wrestlers. This one, like you go to the nWo White, and there's like 10 people.
Right.
There's like Hogan, Bischoff, Buff, Bagwell. I love Buff Bagwell. Scott Steiner. Just the nWo.
Yeah.
Then you pan over and it's nWo Red. It literally is 5 wrestlers.
Yeah. Well, it was probably 20 because the nWo was half the roster.
Right.
But yes.
But then it's a list of 5. Then you screen over and it's Raven's Flock.
Right.
Who wasn't even nearly as predominant of faction as the two nWos.
Yeah, they never won, but they were on TV, and you knew who they were.
And they put them in the game, which
Billy
is rad.
Kidman.
I love Billy Kidman.
Oh, Billy Kidman was very underrated.
And then you scroll over, and there's like 3 lists of WCW guys. And it's cool because it starts out with the main eventers, and then it's like mid-carders, and then kind of the jobbers. And then there's the Cruiserweight division, who's also just WCW.
Right.
And then it's like the made-up fucking guys.
Aki Man.
Yeah, Aki Man.
Well, you got to remember Aki Man.
And fucking Dr. Frank or whatever the fuck like Frankenstein.
Well, I believe they said, I didn't look into it more. I wish I would have, to be quite honest. But there was a time when they had those guys that they made like Aki Man. Obviously, Aki Man was for the creators of the game.
Yeah.
For the company. But a lot of the other wrestlers, I believe, were based on guys in Japan.
Yeah, I believe that. Because they all look like it.
Yeah, they look like some of these Japanese guys.
Yeah,
so we had no idea who they were, but it was such an amazing roster of wrestlers. I don't remember though. I don't know if you looked it up. Where was Goldberg listed?
He was on that first. He's like in the first like 3 or 4 of the WCW.
Because he was such a predominant guy in that game.
Yeah.
Because the spear.
I literally looked it up because I was looking at it this morning, and on the first screen of WCW wrestlers, I think it goes Roddy Piper, DDP, Goldberg, Bret Hart.
Wow.
That's like the
but
first
look at the guys you just named.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like that's 4
as a wrestling
as
fan.
much as I hate Goldberg and Bret Hart, that's 4 that's 4 Hall of Famers right there.
Exactly.
Right? Like it's the only notable exclusion to this game, in my opinion, is the obvious one is Ric Flair.
Yeah, because he got fired.
Yeah, that's when he was fighting with WCW.
Yeah,
but it sucks. How did they not put in like a fucking generic character that is clearly Ric Flair?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
especially in that last page of Akiman and
like when you go, and I mean again, like, and this is what I was trying not to do, but we're not going to have any choice but to compare this game to future wrestling games, and it's not really fair to Revenge because games that are like Revenge had to focus on getting the mechanics and stuff down. Other games took their basic footprint and then improved it. But like in future game, like I'm just trying to think of an example. Like when the Hardy Boys weren't in WWE,
right?
There were obvious like everything the Hardy Boys did was in Create a Wrestler. It was so easy to make the Hardy Boys,
the hair,
right?
The
like
wristband,
you can make CM Punk in 20 minutes in a WWE game if you want to,
100%.
but they can't put him in the game.
No.
And so like I get that there wasn't a Create a Wrestler in this. But I'm really shocked that in all those generic wrestlers, they didn't just put a guy in there with all Ric Flair's moves.
Yeah, and a glittery...
Like, just make a generic... Because, like, Ric Flair is... And I fucking... Don't get me wrong. I love Ric Flair. As do most wrestling fans.
Yeah,
but, like, Ric Flair is not the most... Like, he's a pretty generic-looking wrestler.
Yes.
He's a white guy with a...
Blonde
by
hair.
wrestling standards, an average body in just plain red trunks with blonde hair. It would be so easy to put him in that game.
Yeah, when you think about it deep down, it could have been... He could have been that Create a Wrestler, like the first guy on the screen.
Right.
The one you haven't touched yet.
Yeah.
That's generally what he is.
But I mean, at that point, like, we're just nitpicking. Like, I know they were fighting. They probably were afraid if they put something like that in. Well, they probably weren't afraid of getting sued. Knowing how WCW worked, Eric Bischoff was probably like, he is not anywhere near this.
Well, I believe that was the reason why. I think that was at the time when he missed the flight.
Yeah.
He was supposed to go. He was going to watch his son wrestle, and blah blah blah. Him and Eric just hated each other.
So Rick isn't in it, but everybody else is. The lineup is great. I love the fact that you can pick from stable to stable, like you said. That they actually put that in there is really cool.
Yeah,
and I fucking love the fact that you could edit the wrestlers in this game. And you couldn't go in and create a new wrestler, but you could edit any wrestler's outfit as much as you want.
Yeah,
and
you got 4 outfits per guy, but then you could also change the outfits and make Chris Jericho a part of NWO Red.
Like,
throw a T-shirt on.
And that was the big thing. Is like, because I mean, you could, if you wanted to, you could put fucking Goldberg in Bret Hart's trunks if you wanted to, right? But like that was stupid. But basically, like, I know I would play with my friends, and one of us would be the NWO Wolfpack, and one of us would be NWO Black and White, and we would draft a roster. And then we'd both go through the game and make one of their outfits all NWO shirts.
This is exactly the point, again, of this podcast and of gaming, is what you just said, where you and your buddies would do drafts. Like the details that we used to do as kids was phenomenal. You would sit there and just come up with ways to make the games better by just saying, okay, I'm drafting this guy, you get this guy, whatever. And then you would just... I had guys, we would keep stats if we wanted to on certain games.
We did.
Too. Yeah,
like man. We had like a book, and we like had win-loss records for everyone in their fucking roster, and we kept track of all the titles and who had title belts and all that kind of shit.
Well, because the modes weren't in there yet. Like the thought process for the games was just more about gameplay, who the characters are, and then this was the first game also too, which I loved, was stages and intros were added into the game.
Yeah.
Guys were coming out, like the music wasn't there, but it was a cartridge based game. So you couldn't do everything.
Admittedly, yeah. Cause I think there were literally like 2 generic theme songs.
Yes.
And they would come out to one or the other.
Yeah. And we used to, after about a day or two of playing that game nonstop, the TV was fucking muted. Like,
of course. Yeah.
Because it was that generic shitty guitar rock,
which I've already played, and I will be playing again. By the time I edit this, that will be in there.
I can't wait to hear it.
But yeah, they were generic, and the thing is that's again another thing that like I feel like we're throwing another game under the bus by pointing it out, or throwing Revenge under the bus by being like, well, WrestleMania 2000 had the entrance themes, but it had shitty entrance themes. It had those cartridge based,
sounds,
staticky, shitty.
Yeah, and
like whereas this game honestly, I don't know about yourself, but like. After a few weeks of playing a wrestling game, I fast forward through the entrances anyways. It's like I've seen them 100 times.
Yes,
let's go. Like,
and I'm one of those people that when I play video games now, if I don't need the sound, I'm listening to podcasts, and I'm muting my TV. Like if it's not part of the story, if I'm not playing a game that has any sort of where it needs sound. Like to me, commentary is one of the worst things, even to this day.
Oh, commentary in video games, and it's not even necessarily their fault because they can't record.
No, it's not live.
3 trillion sound bites. Like they can only put so many in, and after you've heard them once, you're like, all right, well, I'm done with this.
It's one of those things where I think, as a true fan of video games, if you told me in a sports game, like a wrestling game or anything like that, we've taken commentary out, no one's really going to lose their minds.
No, well, people will because it's the internet. But nobody should fucking lose their mind.
Because it's crap every time.
But you're right, yeah. The entrances are, and I will say that like it sucks that there's no music, and obviously they walk like they're made of cardboard because it was 1998. But some of the entrances are fucking like they got most of the entrances right.
Yes.
Like, they have their basic, like when Hogan, and I hate Hulk Hogan.
You do?
Yeah, don't you even fucking start with me, you piece of shit. But when Hogan comes out, especially when he's the champ, because he's got the spray painted gold belt.
Of course.
He's got Bischoff beside him pointing at him, and he's playing
nostalgia.
and he's playing the air guitar.
They
and
nailed
you're like,
it.
yeah.
It's not that the game like you said, it's lacking in the graphics and everything. But when you look back on it, you're like, a little bit when you're watching these videos of this game. But if you just take the second and go back in time and go, it still kicks ass.
Dude, I still think these games look good today. I love the kind of retro-y, cartoony look.
Yes.
I like that.
I think it got polished from the first one. Because the first one was World Tour.
World Tour.
World Tour was very polygony, like choppy.
And we played the shit out of World Tour too.
That's where it all started.
Yeah.
But when you got that second game and they broke it down to factions and they added modes and it was just great.
Like Revenge is to World Tour what No Mercy is to WrestleMania 2000. It's just that nobody gives it that credit, but it's so good. Like World Tour was fine, but there were no entrances. The matches literally started with them just standing in the ring, and there was no way to like all 4 sides of the ring were surrounded by like the gate, like to protect the fans. Like there was no entrance or anything. Right. Whereas like in Revenge, and that was, dude, tell me that wasn't one of the best parts of Revenge was fighting up the ramp. Oh. And like running up the ramp, and like you couldn't go backstage or anything.
No, but you can
fight around the ring, fight up the ramp.
That high camera view when it would pull back,
would pan out,
and everybody was like, "This is perfect," because you could see your buddy was brawling with another guy in the ring. Yeah. You're running there, and all of a sudden your buddy's yelling, "Help me, help me!" And you gotta jet back to the ring and get that pin.
And that was new at the time. Like, and don't bring up Attitude because Attitude fucking sucked. All right, Attitude sucked. Revenge pounds Attitude.
I told you the story of not even Revenge, of Warzone.
Yeah.
Raw's War, when I mistakenly, I can't remember the store. It was in West Edmonton Mall. It was by the skating rink. Fuck
yeah,
that guy.
that old dude. One of those. Okay, so like just quickly, every community has those fucking. Game City still exists, and Game City's fucking garbage.
Yes.
So there's these fucking like retro gaming stores or video game stores that are in the malls that are like no name brand or whatever. Like they're not EB or anything. And I'm not defending EB Games because they're fucked too. But they charge like fucking $200 for a video game because they have to.
I couldn't wait a week because I'm an idiot. And on the PlayStation, when Raw's War, I believe it was Raw's War by Acclaim.
It was Warzone.
Warzone,
yeah.
It was the first one, and I couldn't wait. It was the Attitude Era. I got it a week early, and I think I paid $120 from this fucking asshole. And I knew deep down to this day, an hour into playing that game, I knew I made a huge mistake.
Yeah, it wasn't that good.
It was awful, and I think people forget. Like you talk about WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy. You're not getting there without Revenge. And World Tour.
Not. Yeah,
you're not getting those
World Tour
game.
World Tour might be the most important wrestling video game ever made. Because it was just, fair. You know what I mean? And then obviously they all improved, but World Tour was ground zero for these games, right?
Well, and especially, I'm not an N64 guy. I was always a Sega guy. All the way through. Master System, Genesis. Oh, fuck you and your Nintendo. But no, sitting there and picking up that controller for one of the first times, because I never played it. I never owned the N64, but when that game came out, you learned. And I know you've talked about it on your podcast. I fucking hate that controller.
Me too.
It's
but
like
it did work well for those wrestling
games.
Yes,
it did. It did because once you figured it out, you didn't have to do a lot. And I think that's what's lacking in the games out today, is that as much as I hated that control system, it was so fluent. And like once you learned it, it's like everything else. Once you learn it, it's easy.
Yeah.
But especially in those games, it was really simple.
But one of the things I like about those games is that like there's an obvious, like, dude, if you're good and someone else isn't good, you're gonna, and I mean it's like that in wrestling games today too, but like you're gonna fucking work them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not hard to teach someone the basic controls, and then maybe you could play like a tag team match where you're on the same team so you can help them and stuff like that.
Yeah, there was so much to it because again, I will give Nintendo this: the 4 controllers. You had the 4 ports.
4 controllers was rad.
You had everything built in right for it. Right?
Yeah. 4 controllers was rad. The wrestling up there, the fighting up the ramp, I fucking loved it. We would just wrestle up there for hours, like just beat the shit out of each other.
You could reach into the crowd and get weapons,
and that was the other thing is you could reach into the crowd and pull out weapons. And the weapons, like one thing that vividly stands out to me about the weapons is they were so bright. Like remember that? Like I think of the stop sign. That stop sign was so bright.
When you would reach over and you didn't get anything, and like the best. I think everybody has that memory where everybody starts in the ring.
Yeah.
And everybody would just fucking climb out of the ring and just start getting shit.
And the best part, like, what was so cool to me about grabbing weapons was, like, it literally felt the exact same as when you're watching wrestling and a wrestler goes under the ring.
Yes.
And, like, you know, so their opponent's down and out, and they lift up the ring apron and start digging, and you're like, oh, what are they going to get? And that's how it felt, because you didn't know what you were going to get. No. You'd have your opponent knocked down. And that was one thing that I really love about this game is like it's arcadey, but at the same time it is very simulation-y. And when you get your opponent down, because remember they had the spirit meters. I think that's what it was called.
I believe it. Yeah.
And when your spirit was down in like the dark blue and you was like
and
nothing there
towards the middle.
And then your other like if you and I were playing and you were kicking my ass, my spirit's down in like the dark blue. My guy takes forever to get up. He's fucked.
Right.
You're at like the bright orange, close to having your special.
Yes.
That's when you like you taunt a little bit and you saunter. That's when you go to the crowd and look for a weapon.
Right when you're saying this, I'm thinking of you. If we'll role reverse it, you're kicking my ass and you're disco. You'd be disco dancing in that fucking ring.
Right, I would.
Yeah, and
I'd be disco dancing, and then I'd be reaching into the crowd for a weapon.
Yeah, and we'd fight, and then we'd literally fight in the living room because we'd be kids, and I'd leave because I fucking hate.
It was so fun, and then so you'd pull a weapon out. The only problem with the weapons was that when you dropped it, it disappeared because they obviously didn't have the means to like leave them laying around yet.
Exactly.
And so like it sucked so hard when you'd be like, because sometimes you'd reach in 2 or 3 times and not get anything, and you'd be like, come on, and then you'd see the other guy getting up, and you're like, come on, and then you finally get the stop sign, and then right as you turn around, he runs at you and kicks you in the head, and you drop the stop sign,
and it's gone.
Oh,
yeah,
fuck.
No, there was so many because I think you got 2-3 shots with that weapon.
I don't remember
because I'm positive it would like disappear after a while because I don't think you could just totally.
I thought you kept it until you got hit because it was so like because that was the one thing about the spirit meters is I love the concept of them and the momentum of the match, but like, and anyone that played this game fucking knows. Just out of nowhere, and it would just be because they're trying to make the game fair.
Right.
But just out of nowhere, all of a sudden, the guy who's in the dark blue and is basically out of it literally hits one reversal, and suddenly he's flashing red. And you get so angry because it seems so fucking random.
Yeah, you're like, fuck you. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And it was also in the game, too, was the blood. Because because remember, you would hit the guy, and he would take a step back and he'd touch his forehead. And that was the point of every game. We would make sure
you wanted to bust each other open.
All of us were bleeding by the end of it. And you were covered. You were just red. And it was so good.
Yeah. And then as far as the actual wrestling itself, it obviously had that basic control setup that the THQ engine is famous for. And like there's the punches, there's the hold the button, stronger punches, there's the light grapple, and then there's the hold the button, stronger grapple, and then the different direct. So easy to use. I know that by No Mercy you could reverse I think practically every move in the game. I don't think you could in Revenge. I know you had to hit it at the right time. You had to hit L or R at the right time.
It was still technical. It was very technical game in the sense of like when the match started. When you're grappling, you just had to be fast.
And, like, if I'm not mistaken, because the whole point of the game was to fill up your spirit meter, because eventually it would flash and then you get your special.
Right.
But, like, and I haven't played this game in fucking, it came out in 98. I probably haven't played it since 99. Like, since WrestleMania 2000 came out, I had no need to play this.
Right.
But, I want to say that like if you kept doing the same move, it wouldn't fill your spirit up as fast. Like you had to rotate.
Yeah,
moves
once you started doing different moves and throwing guys off the ropes, your spirit meter would go up. I do remember that.
Yeah, but I think if you spam a move, then your spirit doesn't fill as fast. And I think if you went out of the ring and taunted, your spirit would go down. Like you had to be in the ring like
it's like a continuous. It was like it was kind of like real wrestling in the sense like real wrestling. It was like wrestling where the more moves you did, the more momentum you gained.
Yeah.
But the moment you tried to slow down the match or just punch a guy 9 times,
there was no momentum.
Your spirit meter wouldn't move. It was like, okay, fuck you. It's like the game knew, but did it? We don't know.
Yeah. And some of the taunts, like that was one of my favorite things about this game were some of the taunts. Okay. Yeah. Like Laparca would do his fucking dance with his wobbly knees and all that shit. Because I love Laparca. God.
And I remember we would just just sit there, and I had buddies back then that were getting so baked, and all he would do is knock a guy down, and he would just dance
and taunt.
Yeah, he would dance the whole match.
Laparca was the best, and like, and Sting would bust out the like woo, like you'd hear the woo, and then my favorite taunt in the game by 1,000 miles is
gonna be horrible. I know.
No, it isn't. It's fucking Chris Jericho. And he raises his hands and then starts looking around, then brings his hands down like, what? And then he takes his hands out in front of him and pushes back and starts walking backwards as if to be like, okay.
That's right.
And I was, dude, vintage WCW and Chris Jericho was incredible.
Did he not do the, not the Hogan pose? But he also did the...
He had a move. It was a move where he would literally stand on your chest and flex.
That's right.
And that was a
flex. Yeah. Because you'd have the different taunts and everything. I just thought of it too. I saw on the list too of going back to who wasn't in the game. Ric Flair, but one of your shit favorites. Two of your shit favorites also. Norman Smiley.
Yeah.
And then also Ernest the Cat Miller.
I know. Which is brutal.
Who you love.
I love Ernest the Cat Miller. Norman Smiley I could take or leave. I don't hate him.
Well, when he came out in the football gear, that was pretty good.
But Ernest the Cat Miller is a goddamn beauty.
You and I will disagree on certain things for the rest of our lives.
So, yeah, like it just... Okay, so then... All right, so I think we've basically touched on the controls. Oh, yeah, the one other thing I wanted to touch on in the controls, and this is actually a pretty big criticism of this game, and this was a criticism of my game when it came out, not just comparing it to other ones. When you get your spirit meter to flashing red, then you only have like 10 or 15 seconds to flick the joystick to turn it into special mode.
Because that was the finisher, right? You just had to hit the joystick when you grabbed the guy. I think you had to grapple, then you
had to strong grapple, and then hit the joystick, or have them in certain places, like for Buff Bagwell, you had to get him into the turnbuckle.
I don't know if anybody would use Buff, but that's
I
fine.
would.
Yeah,
you had to strong grapple in the corner, and then you pull him out and do the blockbuster.
Yes.
And then like for Bret Hart, I have to assume because I never played with Bret Hart because Bret Hart fucking sucks. But I think you had to have the guy down, and then you went to his feet, did the strong grapple. To
Kevin
put the
Nash
sharpshooter
liked Bret.
On. Yeah, Kevin.
Shawn
Nash.
Michaels liked Bret.
Shawn Michaels is the greatest of all time.
Scott Hall liked Bret.
Fuck off.
Everybody likes Bret.
But the specials were easy to use.
According to Bret.
Yeah, according to Bret. It was the best match I ever had. Anyway, we won't get into this. If you want to know why I hate Bret Hart, message me on Twitter and Instagram @MemberTheGame, and I'll tell you. And it'll be a long story because he sucks. Anyway, specials. It would be so frustrating when you get to that flashing red point because then you had about 15 seconds, I think, to flick the joystick and switch it into special mode. And if you didn't do it, you drop back to neutral. And what would happen is you would get to flashing red, be ready to flip it into special. Yeah. And then if I was wrestling you and you were at flashing red, my only objective was to keep you down for the next 15 seconds. So you didn't have a chance to flick your joystick, and then you didn't get to use your special, which would be so infuriating when you'd be ready to use it.
Because at that point, you think, well, it should just be easy.
But then my other problem, and this is my biggest problem, specials are so easy to use. I love the fact that you have to have the momentum to use them. But a finisher never put a guy down in that game.
It sounds familiar, doesn't it? Like wrestling in real life.
Wrestling in real life, yeah. But you would have because you get your special and it would last for like 20 or 30 seconds, and you could hit especially if you had if you were using Goldberg, the fucking jackhammer took 15 seconds to hit. Yeah, because he'd lock his head in, look around, throw the arm over, pick him up. Yeah. But one of probably my go-to guy in this game was DDP.
Really?
Because I really love DDP. I've always liked DDP.
Well, you do his yoga as well.
And I do his yoga as well. And the diamond cutter was like, boom. So if you were good with DDP, you could hit about 4 diamond cutters in that fucking 20-second window.
That was, boom, not to cut you off, but that was some of the funnest things to do. Is because you and I both know, we've both sat there and laughed and watched when DDP would hit that diamond cutter out of nowhere. And when you did it in the game in different spots,
which was awesome,
everybody would lose their mind. It didn't matter if the guy was getting hit, you were dying of laughter because DDP could hit that when I'll never forget when he hit Billy Kidman, who jumped off not from the corner, but he just jumped from the middle rope. He jumped from the middle of the apron to the top rope, jumped at him, and DDP caught him in midair, nailed it. And just when DDP would pull that move out, and you could do it in the game.
You could do it you could whip him into the corner, and then you put him up on the top rope and give him the top rope diamond cutter.
Yes.
But you could hit your finisher 3 or 4 times, pin the guy, and he would still kick out at 2. You had to beat him down and beat him down and beat him down.
That was the one thing that I agree with you and I disagree with you, because you know what? In the end, those matches ended up being longer, which I think I liked.
Yeah, otherwise, if one finisher put a guy down, a match might have lasted 3 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. But you are right. In wrestling, you and I are nerds totally for wrestling. Yeah. If you hit your finisher, to me, that's it.
Yeah, that should be it.
Unless you're Taker, or you know, there's certain things in wrestling that.
But that's a minor criticism.
Or Hogan.
And the other thing that I forgot till I was researching this was you could steal your opponent's finisher.
That's right.
If you flicked I think you like had to hit a couple buttons at the same time or something.
But at the point you're beating the fuck out of the guy, if he pulled that off, oh man.
Dude, I insisted on beating people with their finisher. Like that's how you win a fucking match.
You've always been this way. You're such a heel.
You have to beat them with their finisher.
You've always been a heel.
Do you know how satisfying it is to jackknife powerbomb Kevin Nash? Oh, fuck
when you're Rey Mysterio.
When you're Rey Mysterio, because that was one of the other problems. And again, this is one of those things that we call a problem, but it didn't matter back then because we hadn't seen it otherwise. They had no version of like a weight or physics or anything. Yeah. Anyone could pick up anyone and do like Rey Mysterio could back body drop the Giant and stuff like that.
Yeah, like it's one of those things that's small and you don't want to be that. Well, see, you can't pick the guy up because look at the size difference.
It made it more fun to like pick a guy up and throw him around when you were Rey Mysterio,
right? Because you know what? Because you were pissing the other guy off.
Yeah.
And we all know in your world. That's
what it's all about.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
So that was rad. Oh yeah, do you remember too that you could cheat, kick out of a pin if you flick the joystick?
No.
Yeah, I'm positive it was in this game. I know it was in a couple of them. If you were pinned and you flicked the joystick, you'd kick out.
Every time?
Pretty much, yeah. Like it was fucking brutal. I like if anyone's listening to this and I'm wrong, please actually message me. Let me know.
I do. For some reason, I remember that was in one of those games.
I know it was, and I'm positive it was revenge because we had like an unwritten rule that like
you can't.
That's bullshit. Like you can't do it. And like once you pinned a guy, you'd be looking at your buddy's controller. Just to be like, don't you fuck around. Because like, I don't need to, I can hear fucking the guy count. I don't need to fucking see this.
And the thing is too, in those days, there was a distinct noise when you hit that joystick.
That like,
that clicking. You fucking, cunt. You prick. Because it was D-pad based. Mostly.
Yeah, the joystick was taunting and specials.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
Yeah. I like that too, the D-pad. I miss the D-pad.
Everybody should miss the D-pad.
Another thing I remember, which is really rad, is you remember that certain wrestlers would start the match with a weapon? Like La Parka always started with a chair. Sting started with a bat. I think Raven started with something.
I think he had the stop sign, did he not?
Yeah, he might have had a stop sign. There was only 3 or 4 of them, but they would start with a weapon, and I thought that was cool too.
Because that was during the
Just fan
hardcore.
service.
Yeah, it was that little that hardcore era of Raven and ECW and all those guys. So it was that was fun. I just looking back on it too, the stages, man.
Dude, yes, and
that was something that was the first time that was put into these games. And I'm gonna say this off topic. WWE, if I know you're not listening, but hopefully one day they are. Halloween Havoc, do the stage, please,
dude. Yes,
the giant balloon.
That's on my notes to bring up. Like this was the first time we really got to see not just like a different ring apron or different colored ropes. They had like the full out like Bash at the Beach.
They had 6. They had 6 different stages.
Bash at the Beach was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Halloween Havoc, where he came out behind the big pumpkin, was sweet. Starrcade looked dope. Yes. It was Nitro, and it was the good Nitro setup. The Super Brawl one I could take.
It was very basic, generic. but it was WCW.
And then I want to say Sold Out.
Yes, the Sold Out had that little mini stage that they do at WWE house shows. You had that one, and they just kind of walked around that. That piece that looked like plywood.
To me, it's the Nitro set, Bash at the Beach, and Halloween Havoc.
Oh, Halloween Havoc to me is one of the most underrated things.
I didn't realize it, but this game came out. According to the article I read about when I was doing like the one article I read for homework before I started this podcast, this game released like the week after the Halloween Havoc match between Goldberg and DDP.
Oh God, the one that cut off?
Yeah. yeah. I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think because Goldberg was at his prime in this game. He's on the cover and everything like that.
Yes, because the story, not the story mode, but the mode to this game. Because watching a review again, doing my homework as well, it really, I don't know if you remember the entrance, like the main screen when they did the video of like different moves, and it was like the introduction to the game, and at the end it's Sting and it's Hogan standing on the stage, and it built off the storyline from when Sting came back. And it's funny because in the game, I believe Sting is wearing the red.
He is, yeah. But you can switch him to like the Crow Sting, and he can go back to Surfer Sting.
Well, you can make Hogan Hollywood, or not Hollywood, but red and yellow as well.
That's right, yeah.
You had everybody.
Do you remember, not to go to a different game, but do you remember World Tour? You could play as NWO Sting.
Really?
Remember the fake Sting?
Oh, yes, fake Sting. I love fake Sting.
Yeah. I just looked it up, and yes, it was. October 25th, 98 was Goldberg Page. October 26th, 98 was the release of this game.
And wasn't this the game that was voted, or was it World Tour that was voted Fighting Game of the Year?
Yeah, I think it was this one. Yeah.
And when you think about that, think about the era that this game came out as a fighting game, because we're still talking about Mortal Kombat. We're still talking about games that were out there. Yeah. Street Fighter, stuff like that. Those games were so prominent. But a wrestling game.
Well, because, I mean, and then you know what that is? That's the perfect storm of wrestling being as big as it has ever been. Was right in this, like, the 2 or 3 year window of this game. Ever will be. Yes. And these games were perfect. You know what I mean? And this was, like, people remember, like, this was when WCW, like, was fucking huge. You know?
White hot.
Like, I mean, honestly, like, when I play that Halloween Havoc level with the pumpkin and the red, what I think of, honestly, one of the first matches I think of when I think of WCW is Goldberg DDP. Because I remember, I didn't watch the pay-per-view, but I do remember, like, legitimately, like, is DDP going to be the guy that beats Goldberg?
I think I did watch it scrambled because my TV, we used to have the scrambler. So I used to listen to pay-per-views and
like I watched it actually. We're not going to go on a wrestling rant. We're going to go back to the game in a second. But I actually watched it on YouTube, I don't know, about a month ago. It was one of my suggested videos because WWE puts so many of them up there.
Of course.
And it's really not that good of a match. But having said that,
it was a fight.
It was the best match I could get out of Goldberg. And DDP's brought it up a million times. Everyone's brought it up. But when Goldberg puts DDP up for the jackhammer and DDP dropped down behind him and hit the diamond cutter.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, this is it. Because DDP was fucking white hot at one point.
The moment he did the diamond cutter to Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
He was supposed to get the t-shirt.
Yeah.
And he went in the crowd and the crowd was like, wow. Because I think at that point, there was still people that were like, okay, it's like, everybody's in this. Like, really? DDP too?
Yeah, and it was
and
too
when
much.
when he finally said no, you were kind of like, wait a minute. Like, this is cool. Yeah. Like, he's actually not, he's going against the grain. Yeah. Because everybody was in the NWO.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Were. And like, I mean, literally, we would play that game and just put everyone into the 2 NWO factions.
And it's funny when you look back on it, like, as a kid watching it, we were like, this is so sick. This is so cool. And then you watch it, you go, God damn it. They didn't, if they just would have not done that.
Yeah, they fucked it up.
And made it split almost even. Like again, we're ranting about something that could be a totally different thing.
No, but you're right, though. They fucking, it's sad. It's kind of sad to look back on how they ruined it.
Well, it's the most basic thing.
So I was going to wrap this up soon, but actually there's something else I wanted to talk about, and that is like probably my biggest criticism of Revenge. And this was actually a criticism of it even before I played WrestleMania or No Mercy. The career mode sucks. And that's the one thing Attitude did better than No Mercy. Because at least Revenge. Because at least WWF Attitude, for as shitty as it was, the career mode was you made because it had to create a wrestler, and so you either pick a wrestler or plays a create a wrestler.
Okay.
And then it had like a calendar, and it showed like house show, Raw, pay-per-views, and you had to like climb the ranks to get shots at the different belts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's no real storylines, but at least you felt like you were on the road and doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas like the championship mode is like the and like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because the heart of this game is the multiplayer, playing with your friends. But the career mode was you literally just picked one of the titles. There was the world title, the US title, the TV title, the tag team titles, or the cruiserweight title, and you just played like 9 matches. And then
so it was kind of like a King of the Ring tournament, but it wasn't.
It was just
basic.
It was like, I mean, and that's what wrestling career modes used to be, right? It was just like a ladder. You fought through 8 or 9 guys, and you got a title.
Yes.
Fighting games were the same thing. Like I had Mortal Kombat 2, and you had to fight through everybody. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And that was kind of boring. The only cool thing about it was that once you won the belt with somebody, when you would pick them to play in any mode, I think they had the belt on.
Yes, I believe you are correct.
But I don't think you could put the belt on the line in a regular match. Like, I think if you wanted to switch the belt on the game, you had to go back through the fucking career mode and beat like 9 more, which was stupid.
And then get to the champion who you were, and then beat him.
Right. Because in my game, Chris Jericho had all the belts.
That's fine.
Yeah. And then the tag titles he had with DDP, but he had all the belts.
I'm shocked it wasn't Disco.
Well, he probably had a run with the heavyweight title, but I love Disco.
Like the one you can tell, like looking back on it, this wasn't a 1-player game.
No, it wasn't.
It
did the job ish, but yeah.
Yeah. And to even think about it, like I grew up as a kid, I was a WWE guy. I remember vividly though, the moment I saw anything WCW, actually it might have been NWA WCW.
Yeah.
Was I don't know if you remember as a kid when we got TBS as a channel. From Atlanta. I remember because 2 things. WGN Chicago got every Bulls game. Obviously, I'm a Bulls fan now. Always have been. And then Chicago White Sox. Thank goodness. Frank Thomas. And then with You're wearing a Rays shirt. Shut up.
I know.
But when it came to TBS, I just vividly remember being about 10, 11 years old, if that. At about 11 o'clock at night, I was still up. I don't know why. Parents didn't really care. But I remember watching a NWA, WCW. It would have been NWA. It was Steamboat and Flair. It was like a late night. And I remember it because I remember seeing highlights of those matches now. But I remember Steamboat and Green because of those lime green tights. Right. And I remember as a kid going, what wrestling is this? It was dark. It was dingy. But that's what they did. They turned the lights down low and they did it differently. And that was my first taste of WCW. But in those 90s, like WCW was finally kicking it into gear, obviously with the Hogan turn. Yeah, buddy. And it just made that game so big and huge.
Honestly, like my primary knowledge of WCW is playing this game. Like that was how I discovered WCW. Yeah, was this game.
Because those early years of them taking all the roster of Earthquake and Brutus Beefcake, the Booty Man.
Yeah, yeah.
Who I don't think was in this game, actually.
No,
was
he
the Booty
wasn't.
Man?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, thank God.
Fuck him.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, I guess if you ask me, in my opinion, like this is I mean, it's I'm not going to say it's the best wrestling video game ever because like the engine itself is improved, but it's unquestionably the best WCW video game ever.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of bad ones, but this one World Tour fine, but this is the best one.
After Aki lost at THQ and them.
Assault or backstage assault
EA,
and mayhem
man.
and
as usual,
fucking
as
Thunder.
You know how I feel about fucking EA. So,
yeah. But this game is awesome. I feel like this is my happiest memory of WCW, and I think this is as good of like I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but it's like as good a screenshot or a captured moment as there is of what WCW could be, because there was a time when it was awesome, and this game summed it up perfectly. The roster's sick, the game is fun, the stages and the sets or whatever you want to call them, like the arenas look fucking tight. It's so good. The roster was so good. Like they had such a great roster.
It was a lot of guys. Like
really
that's when you think about it is like they filled 3 hours of TV, but they filled 3 hours of TV in the beginning when the WCW nWo storyline was white hot, but you had the cruiserweights, you had everything. Yeah. So they filled that television, and when you played the game, playing as Rey Mysterio, flipping around the ring, and like just doing what those guys did, it was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun.
It's a benchmark. It's a benchmark game that led to the future of WWE games. I think today to the later incarnations of No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000, and all those games. Because without that game and THQ and those guys making it, and Aki and those guys, you didn't have that basic game. And there's a part of me, and you and I have discussed this, where I feel like they need to go that route again.
I would love, like, I mean, everybody, you see so many people posting about it, but like everybody wants an AEW game in this exact style. Like everybody wants it. It's funny because I haven't played these games, like even up to No Mercy. Like I haven't, dude, if I combined these 4 games, like World Tour, Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, and No Mercy, I could speak another language if I took that much time and put it into something else. Like I played these games for fucking days. I haven't played any of them in it has to be 15 plus years. Yeah. And as tempted as I am, I want to just keep the memories where they are, because I'm worried that I would be like, this is clunky and slow.
I that's one thing I love about your podcast, is because there's times where you've had people on before and you've said that is like, I have such a good memory.
Yeah, I'm good.
If I plug this game in,
it's gonna ruin it.
Yeah. But again, that's it was for the time.
I'm just reading
the time, and it was great.
I'm just reading right here. According to a 1999 article by IGN, Revenge was the best-selling wrestling game for the Nintendo 64, which I would believe.
Yeah.
Because by the time No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000 came out, as awesome as those games are, I think some people had moved on from the Nintendo 64. Like PlayStation was around.
Right. And then also, like wrestling was still hot.
Not like Monday Night Wars hot, though.
When you had 10 million people watching it on Mondays?
Yeah.
You had 10 million people watching wrestling.
And at the time, it was the top-selling third-party Nintendo game ever, which I believe. It's got universal praise. The reviews are all over are positive across the board.
Think about what you just said, though. Nintendo.
Yeah.
Third-party game all time. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Like, it's amazing.
This game's awesome. Brad, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you score WCW nWo Revenge?
I got to give it a 9.5, man. I just think it was so good in its time, and the memories that you and I shared when we worked together, and the first time we kind of started talking about video games and such. And it just brings you back to a time where it was so much fun. And like you said, the roster, the stages. If it had Ric Flair and he was doing the strut in the ring, I can't even think of him walking across that ring and then falling, like his patented move. That would have been the most amazing thing to add into that game. That's all it was missing.
Yeah, I agree.
And in regards to what you said about AEW, Cody Rhodes posted a photo of pretty much the box with Young Bucks and them on it.
Yeah.
You can tell that this was the game.
I love
at that point.
It was, yeah. And some people say it still is. I'll give it a 9. I love it. I love all 4 of those wrestling games on Nintendo 64. For my money, like, they're my favorite Nintendo 64 games ever. Like, I fucking adore. I adore them.
Yeah,
I adore them.
If your buddy was having a house party or anything like that, or just having buddies over, this was one of the first games you plugged in and you just went.
Yeah, just played. Warren, good job, buddy. Thank you so much for coming over.
Thanks,
talking
man.
WCW, nWo, Revenge with me. Hulk Hogan sucks and he's a racist piece of shit. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, he is.
And yeah, that's good. I'll end it right there. I got my shot in. Good stuff.
Disco sucks.
Bret Hart sucks. And that's going to do it for this week's episode, you guys. Brad, thank you so much for coming over and talking WCW and nWo Revenge with me, you guys. If you played these games growing up, that was a fucking trip down memory lane right there. This is like the main reason I want a Nintendo 64 Classic is for the wrestling games that I know won't even end up on it because of all the licensing issues and stuff. And like THQ, if you're fucking listening to this, I think it's THQ that makes the wrestling games today. Whoever it is that makes the wrestling games today, quit fucking around. Just give us these. This is all we want. Give us a remake of this with the current roster. That's all we fucking want. Or better yet, AEW. Cody Rhodes has been teasing it. Let's get some Give us these games. They're so good. You guys, thank you so much for listening. Like I said off the top, thank you all so much for supporting the show. We cracked 10,000 downloads. I'm very humbled by that. Let's go for 100. 25 is the next goal, and we're going to get there by episode 100. I'm sure of it. Thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. Keep an eye out for the Sega Genesis giveaway draw video that's going to be going up. It is too late to get in on that draw, but it's not too late to support the show on Patreon, you guys. Patreon.com/rememberthegame. $2 a month is going to get you a shout out on the show, 2 bonus episodes, and an entry into our monthly prize draw. Your bonus episode this month, the first one, is coming out this Monday on the 12th. We are talking Octopath Traveler. So check out the Patreon page too. I'm going to try to get a poll up there. I want to see what you guys want for your other bonus episode. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at @memberthegame. We follow you back. Check us out on Facebook. And until next time, I'm going to shut up and get out of here and go get some sleep. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you again in a few days. Take it easy. Cheers.